After 15 years of marriage, my husband had an affair with his young receptionist and left me, but when she blackmailed him and ruined his career, he came crawling back. I need to get this off my chest because I honestly can't believe how my life turned upside down in just a few months. I, 42 female, met my husband Anthony, 45 male, in college when we were both working part-time jobs to pay for our education. I worked at a small bookstore near campus, and he worked the front desk at a budget hotel. He used to come to the bookstore during his breaks, claiming he wanted to read, but really just to talk to me. We got married right after graduation. Money was tight, we lived in a tiny apartment, ate lots of ramen, and dreamed about the future. Anthony was ambitious from the start. He took extra courses in hotel management while working full-time. I picked up overtime shifts to help pay for his classes. We were a team, and I never doubted it was worth it. His hard work paid off. He moved up from front desk to supervisor, then assistant manager, and finally landed a position as senior manager at one of the most prestigious hotels in our city. It was a huge achievement, the kind of job people in the hospitality industry dream about. I was so proud of him. We finally bought our dream house, started traveling, and felt like we'd made it. His parents practically adopted me as their daughter. They came over every Sunday for dinner, and his mom taught me all their family recipes. My family loved Anthony too. My dad, who passed away 5 years ago, used to say Anthony was the son he never had. We were that couple everyone thought would grow old together. Everything changed about 8 months ago when Anthony mentioned they'd hired a new receptionist, Melinda, 27 female. He said she was a young divorcee trying to restart her life. I didn't think much about it at first. The hotel has over 200 employees, and people come and go all the time. But then I started noticing small changes. Anthony began working later than usual. Now, late nights weren't unusual in his position. The hotel industry runs 24/7, and there are always issues to handle. But this felt different. He stopped telling me about his schedule, something he'd always done before. He changed his phone password. We used to know each other's passwords, not because we snooped, but because we trusted each other completely. When I asked about it, he said IT at work required regular password changes for security. It sounded reasonable, but something felt off. Then came the physical changes. Anthony started going to the gym regularly, bought a whole new wardrobe, and even started using anti-aging creams. He'd never cared much about that stuff before. When I commented on it, he said he just wanted to look professional for work. The text messages were constant. His phone would buzz during dinner, while watching TV, even in bed. He'd always angle the screen away from me. When I asked who he was texting so much, he'd say it was work stuff, too complicated to explain. Our conversations became shorter. He stopped asking about my day. He used to love hearing about my small business. I run an online craft store, but suddenly he seemed distant, distracted. Physical intimacy became rare, and when it happened, it felt mechanical. One evening about 4 months ago, I decided to surprise him at work. He texted saying he had to work late again, so I thought I'd bring him dinner. That's when I met Melinda. She was stunning, tall, blonde, confident. The way she talked to Anthony set off alarm bells. She touched his arm while laughing, called him Tony. He always hated nicknames, and seemed way too familiar with my husband. Anthony looked uncomfortable when he saw me there. He quickly introduced me as his wife, not by my name, and hurried me to his office. He barely touched the food I brought, saying he had a meeting in 10 minutes. I left feeling like an intruder in my husband's life. After that night, I started paying more attention. Anthony's excuses became more elaborate. He'd leave early claiming breakfast meetings, stay late for alleged client dinners, and disappear on weekends for emergency situations at the hotel. He even missed my sister's wedding shower because of a last-minute convention. I tried talking to him several times. I asked if everything was okay, if work was too stressful, if he needed a vacation. He dismissed my concerns, saying I was overthinking things. But how do you overthink 15 years of marriage slowly unraveling? I remember our 15th anniversary 6 months ago. We went to our favorite restaurant, the same one where we celebrated his promotion. He spent half the dinner on his phone, barely making conversation. When I asked if he was happy, he said everything was fine, just busy with work. Last week, I noticed he'd left his laptop open when he rushed out for another emergency. The email notification that popped up made my stomach drop. I haven't checked it yet. I'm scared of what I might find, but I also know I can't keep living like this. Am I overreacting? Should I check his laptop? I feel like I'm going crazy, analyzing every little change and interaction. This isn't the man I married, but I don't know if I'm ready to face what that might mean. I could really use some outside perspective here. How do you know when you're being paranoid versus when your instincts are trying to tell you something important? Update 1. First, thank you everyone for your support on my last post. You were all right, I needed to trust my gut. Well, I found out everything, and it's even worse than I imagined. Last week started normally enough. I was doing my annual spring cleaning, going through drawers and closets, deciding what to donate. In our home office, I found Anthony's old tablet stuffed in the bottom drawer. He'd stopped using it months ago after getting a new one for work. I turned it on, thinking I could reset it and donate it to the local youth center. The tablet was still logged into his accounts, email, messages, everything. That's when my world collapsed. There were hundreds of messages between him and Melinda going back almost 6 months. I sat there for 4 hours, reading through everything with my hands shaking. It started with work-related texts. Melinda asking questions about hotel procedures, Anthony giving advice. Then came the compliments. She'd praise his leadership style. He'd comment on her outfit. Soon they were having coffee breaks that turned into long lunches away from the hotel. The photos started 3 months ago. At first, just selfies from Melinda, always perfectly posed. Then they got more suggestive. She sent him photos in her underwear, asking if he liked what he saw. He responded with heart emojis and messages about how beautiful she was. They sexted regularly, planning meetups in hotel rooms during his supposed client meetings. The messages made me sick. Melinda called him her silver fox and said younger men couldn't compare to his experience. Anthony told her she made him feel alive again, that their connection was special. They planned weekend trips, disguising them as business conferences. He even used our favorite beach resort, the same place we spent our 10th anniversary. But the worst messages weren't the sexual ones. They were the ones where they talked about me. Anthony told her our marriage had grown stale, that I'd become boring and predictable. He said I was too focused on routine while Melinda was spontaneous and exciting. They joked about how clueless I was, even laughing about the night I brought him dinner at work. I found messages from the night of my sister's wedding shower. He wasn't at any emergency meeting. He was with Melinda at her apartment, while I made excuses for him to my family. They'd ordered takeout and watched movies, acting like teenagers while my sister kept asking where my husband was. When Anthony came home that evening, I was still sitting in the office. The tablet was on the desk between us. He asked what was wrong, and I just turned the screen toward him. His face changed when he saw the messages. First shock, then anger that I'd invaded his privacy. Instead of apologizing, he got defensive. Said I wouldn't understand, that Melinda made him feel young again. Our life had become too routine, too boring. He had the nerve to blame me, saying I'd stopped trying to excite him years ago. When I asked if Melinda was worth throwing away 15 years of marriage, he looked at me and said, she might be. I stayed calm, probably because I was in shock. I told him to sleep in the guest room while I contacted my lawyer. He didn't argue, just grabbed some clothes and left the room. I heard him on the phone later, probably telling Melinda what happened. The next morning, I called the lawyer who handled our prenup. Thankfully, we kept most of our assets separate, with clear guidelines for division in case of divorce. I also called my sister, who came over immediately. She wanted to confront Anthony, but I stopped her. This needs to be handled legally and cleanly. When I told his parents, his mother cried. She kept saying she didn't raise him to be like this. His father, who always bragged about Anthony's success, couldn't even speak. My family was furious. My brother wanted to go to the hotel and make a scene, but I convinced him to stay out of it. Anthony's still at the hotel, still seeing Melinda. They don't even try to hide anymore. A friend saw them having lunch at our favorite restaurant, the same place we used to celebrate special occasions. Melinda was wearing a necklace I'd seen charged to our joint account last month. I've moved into the guest room while the divorce papers are being prepared. The house feels huge and empty now. 15 years of photos stare at me from the walls, our wedding, vacations, family gatherings. I took them all down yesterday. They show a life that doesn't exist anymore. The divorce should be straightforward thanks to the prenup. We split all joint assets 50-50, including his hotel bonuses and stock options. He can keep his freedom and his young girlfriend. I'll keep my dignity and self-respect. Some friends suggested marriage counseling, saying all couples face challenges. But how do you counsel someone back from betrayal? How do you trust someone who could lie to your face for months while building a future with someone else? I'm staying with my sister until I find my own place. After 15 years of sharing a bed with someone, sleeping alone feels strange. But it's better than lying next to someone who sees you as an obstacle to their happiness. I'll update when the divorce proceedings start. Right now, I'm trying to understand how the man I loved for 15 years could become someone I don't even recognize. Update 2. They say karma has perfect timing. Well, everyone, grab your popcorn because what happened in the last few weeks proves it. The man who threw away 15 years of marriage for an exciting young girlfriend got exactly what he deserved. Sarah, my friend who still works at the hotel, called me last week with all the details. Apparently, after our last mediation session, Anthony went to Melinda with big plans. He told her he was getting divorced, had an apartment lined up for them, and wanted to start their life together officially. Melinda's response? She laughed in his face. Right there in the hotel coffee shop, she told him she never wanted anything serious. She said she enjoyed the attention and expensive gifts from a senior manager, but marriage? Children? Growing old together? That wasn't part of her plan. According to Sarah, Anthony looked like someone had punched him in the gut. He tried reasoning with Melinda, reminding her of all their plans and conversations. But Melinda just shrugged and said she was young and wanted to keep her options open. She told him he was naive to think she'd want to be stepmother to his grown kids or deal with his family drama. But it gets worse. When Anthony tried ending things, saying he couldn't work with her anymore, Melinda showed her true colors. She threatened to go to HR with evidence of their relationship. She claimed he'd used his position to manipulate her, pressured her into intimate situations, and used company resources for their affair. She demanded a significant amount of money to keep quiet. Not just a small sum, she wanted enough to buy a new car and put a down payment on a house. When Anthony refused, she went straight to HR with her story and all their text messages. The hotel management launched an investigation. They found Anthony had been using his company card for their dates and gifts. Those weekend getaways? All marked as business trips. Expensive dinners? Logged as client meetings. Even the necklace he bought her was filed under employee appreciation gifts. Last week, the hotel's board called Anthony in. They gave him two options: resign immediately or be fired with cause. He chose to resign, but his reputation is destroyed. 20 years in the industry, gone because he couldn't keep it professional. Sarah told me his office clearing was awkward. People he'd worked with for years wouldn't even look at him. The same colleagues who used to laugh at his jokes and praise his leadership now pretended he didn't exist. Someone even deleted his photo from the employee wall of fame in the lobby. Then came the desperate attempts to fix his life. He tried calling me repeatedly. When I didn't answer, he sent a long email apologizing for everything. He wrote about realizing his mistake, about throwing away a good marriage for nothing, about losing sight of what mattered. He wanted another chance. His parents called too. His mother was crying, saying she couldn't believe her son would act this way. His father, who spent years bragging about Anthony's career success, said he could barely look him in the mirror. They asked if I would consider forgiving him, saying people deserve second chances. Some mutual friends have started taking sides. A few suggested I should at least hear him out, that marriages can survive affairs if both people want to work on it. Others, especially those who saw how he flaunted his relationship with Melinda, think I'm better off without him. The divorce is still moving forward. We've listed the house for sale, and I'm dividing up our assets according to the prenup. Anthony's trying to delay things now that his financial situation has changed, but my lawyer isn't having it. I've already found a nice apartment and started moving my things. Melinda. She's still at the hotel, acting like nothing happened. Sarah says she's already getting friendly with one of the new managers from the corporate office. The same giggling, touching his arm, sending those looks across the room. Some people never change. Anthony's living in a small apartment now, sending out job applications. Turns out when you're fired for misconduct from a major hotel, other hotels aren't eager to hire you. Last I heard, he's interviewing for night manager positions at budget motels. I'm moving forward with my life. The apartment I found is closer to my sister, and I've started redecorating it exactly how I want. No more compromising on color schemes or furniture styles. Every decision is mine now, and it feels liberating. I'll update one last time when everything's finalized. For now, I'm focusing on building my new life, one where I don't have to wonder if I'm exciting enough for someone who couldn't appreciate what he had. Update 3. This will be my final update. The divorce was finalized last week, and I want to share how everything turned out. For those wondering why it took so long, Anthony kept trying to delay things, hoping I'd change my mind. He didn't. Let me tell you where everyone ended up. Anthony's working as a night manager at a small motel off the highway, about an hour outside the city. Quite a change from running a luxury hotel. His references were so bad that even mid-range hotels wouldn't touch him. He's making about a quarter of his previous salary. Melinda got exactly what she wanted. The hotel paid her a hefty settlement to avoid legal trouble. She resigned shortly after, but not before causing more drama. Sarah told me Melinda started flirting with the corporate manager who handled her case. She left with a fat check and a new boyfriend. Last I heard, she's now working at another high-end hotel across town, probably looking for her next target. 2 weeks ago, Anthony made his final attempt at reconciliation. He showed up at my new apartment unannounced, holding a bouquet of lilies, the same flowers he used to bring when we were dating. He looked terrible, like he'd aged 10 years and 6 months. His clothes were wrinkled, and he'd lost weight. He gave this long speech about realizing his mistakes, about how much he missed our life together, about willing to do anything to fix things. I let him finish, then asked him one simple question: would you be here if Melinda hadn't rejected you? If you hadn't lost your job? His silence said everything. His family situation is sad. His parents, who used to brag about their successful son, barely speak to him now. His mother still reaches out to me occasionally. Last month, she invited me for coffee and apologized again for Anthony's behavior. She said she still considers me her daughter and hopes to keep in touch. I appreciated her words but told her I needed a complete break from my old life. The divorce settlement followed our prenup exactly. We split everything 50-50. Anthony tried arguing about his pension and stock options, claiming he couldn't afford to give up half since he's struggling financially. My lawyer shut that down fast. I kept our dog, Max, since Anthony never really paid attention to him anyway. I ran into Brian, Anthony's former assistant manager, at the grocery store last week. He said Anthony still talks about me to anyone who'll listen, saying leaving me was his biggest mistake. Apparently, he keeps a photo of us from our last vacation on his new desk. Too little, too late. My life has changed completely, mostly for the better. The apartment feels like home now. I've redecorated everything in colors Anthony always vetoed. Started a hiking group with some new friends, something Anthony said was a waste of time. I'm even taking a photography class at the community college. People keep asking if I'm dating again. I'm not, and honestly, I'm in no hurry. For the first time in 15 years, I'm making decisions without considering anyone else's opinions or preferences. It's surprisingly liberating. This experience taught me something valuable. Loyalty isn't just about staying faithful. It's about respecting the life you've built together, about choosing your partner every day. Anthony failed at both when something newer and more exciting came along. I won't be updating anymore. This chapter of my life is closed. Anthony made his choices, and now he's living with the consequences. As for me, I'm finally writing my own story, and it's looking pretty good. Thank you, Reddit, for supporting me through this journey. Your advice helped me stay strong when I needed it most.